Welcome to the DFS Build MLB edition, baby. We are so back. Yeah, we do still do NBA videos, and we'll do them every day until the NBA is dead for the season. But in a very real way, the NBA product is such garbage that it's already dead to us. But really, we'll hand out picks and analysis for those. We just did the video for today, so you can catch that at the end of. Actually, I'm going to schedule this video probably, so disregard. Point is, just check out our YouTube channel for the NBA videos, and you'll see them. But MLB opening day is here, so we're going to go over it. The way we do that is we actually go team by team, so we can have a good look at the matchup and see what sticks stand out, and also how the pitcher's profile against the offenses. If anything we do here helps you out, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you get alerted to future videos just like this. And if you want to get access to our picks for MLB, where we hand out stacks and our top pitchers for the day, definitely head over to our Patreon to jump in now while the getting is good. All right, first game of the slate for opening day, for this slate anyways, is the Nationals against the Phillies. We have Zach Wheeler going up against the Nats. He looks pretty damn good because the Nats are not a team to fear, and Wheeler is certainly a very good pitcher. So I don't mind Wheeler whatsoever. He looks like a really good spend. How are you feeling about him?
Yeah, he's okay. There are obviously quite a few aces on this slate on opening day, so he's good. He usually has a long leash. The issue is Washington's not a very high strikeout lineup in general, and Wheeler's kind of more of an above-average strikeout guy and not an ace like, Paul Skeens. I almost called him Cole Skeens for some reason. Mm-hmm. So he's okay at 9.5. I'm getting around 10%, which is a decent number, but hardly a priority. I do think Mackenzie Gore is interesting on the other side of the game. The Phillies should be somewhat popular as an offense, given all the power they have. Gore is a fly ball lefty that will give up home runs, but he's 6,600 and he's a pretty good strikeout pitcher himself. And the main thing is he's going to be pretty unowned on this slate compared to Yusei Kikuchi, who looks like the chalk SP2 thanks to his matchup against the White Sox. So as a way to get different, I think Gore is pretty interesting. Not a core play or anything like that, but I do think he's a pretty viable SP2.
Yeah, so the thing is, I see the projected pitch count for Skeens is 81, and Wheeler we know has a little bit of a longer leash. I'm not that worried about the Skeens thing, obviously, but I think Wheeler just is a really good pivot on a super chalky Skeens. So I'm not saying to stack Marlins against Skeens at all, or to fade Skeens, but I do think Wheeler's a really good, interesting pivot. He did put up 26 fantasy points per game across 3 meetings in this matchup, so I'm not worried at all about the strikeout thing. Like the Marlins, the Nats still strike out, so I think it's fine. On the other side, like Gore is interesting because I don't think he's that expensive here. What is he? 6.6K. Yeah, so I see your interest, man. We know he has a good, he has upside, good strikeout rate. So Phillies can strike out a bit. They are a bit of a power-hungry team. So I don't hate that. I do tend to lean more towards the Phillies. Like if his reverse splits from last year are going to hold true, 184 ISO against lefties, like Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper, like Phillies actually look kind of good here. So I don't mind them. It's not really like a priority either way. I think for the most part in this game, it's just Wheeler or bust for me.
Yeah, I think the Phillies, like I mentioned, liking Gore a little bit as a tournament SP2, but the Phillies are clearly one of the best offenses on the slate. Gore being a pretty severe reverse split lefty makes it a really good spot for Schwarber and Bryce Harper and Max Kepler, even lefty-lefty. Even though the pitcher is reverse splits, the field generally still prefers the platoon advantage with hitters. Yep. So we could easily see Harper and Schwarber go a little bit under-owned compared to guys like Trey Turner, Alec Boehm, the other right-handed hitters in the Philadelphia lineup. So if you're stacking them, I'd be sure to – I mean, it's hard with the salary. Like, the Phillies are expensive because they're good. But if you can afford Schwarber and Harper in your stacks, then I'd recommend doing that. But Castellanos is going to look good. Trey Turner, like I mentioned, Real Muto, the catcher, like still a super deep lineup. Even Edmundo Sosa, if he's in there, had pretty good numbers against lefties last season. So it is my second highest exposed stack on the slate as of now, like 24 hours before it actually starts. But yeah, certainly an awesome stack tomorrow.
Yeah, I think they're pretty damn interesting. The price, like you said, is kind of really the only real hang up. Next game we have Garrett Crochet making his debut for the Red Sox, taking on the Rangers. I believe this game is in Texas. Good park for hitting for sure. Any idea what the temp's going to be down there? Probably pretty warm.
I don't know if the roof will be opened or not. I don't see it on the weather report or anything. So if it's
okay, well, either
closed.
way, Crochet looks really good. Second best projection of the slate, only 9K. He has massive strikeout upside, so we have no reason not to like him as an individual play. And honestly, the Rangers aren't that scary right now. They do have power. Like individually, there's some good power here to go against the lefty. Like Adolis Garcia obviously can smack it. Wyatt Langford can smack it. And you have other guys here. They added Jake Berger, who has some power against lefties. But Crochet is probably just going to make them all fucking miss everything that he throws at them. So I don't know. I like him quite a bit. They do have a pretty good collective strikeout rate here against Southpaws. I just don't know if this is really a spot where I feel excited to pay up for or to stack Rangers. How about you?
Yeah, it's one of those offenses that's good enough to stack just about every day. Like they have a ton of talent. Seager's healthy. Marcus Semien, we know, has a lot of power. Josh Young is healthy for now. He has power too. So it is a good lineup. Evan Carter's back after missing most of last year. The issue is Crochet might be the best pitcher on the entire slate or in the entire league. So certainly easy for them. I do like Crochet himself. Like you said, Texas does have some strikeouts in the lineup. We don't know what Crochet's leash will look like. The White Sox were very careful with him last year, but now, obviously it's a new team. They sent a lot to Chicago for him, so I assume they're just going to roll him out there as usual, at least to begin the season. So as a lower-owned pivot from Skeens on the high end, I think he's an awesome play, especially on DraftKings. And then on FanDuel, the price gap between Skeens and Crochet is just too wide. So I would have a lot of interest in him over there as well, even as your only pitcher, obviously. Not really interested in the Texas bats against Crochet, but I think the Boston bats on the other side of the game against Nate Eovaldi, I believe, look pretty good. Yep. Boston upgraded its lineup too. They have Alex Bregman now. Trevor Story's healthy again. It's just a good offense top to bottom. The lefties at the top, Casas, Duran, and Devers, obviously the core plays in any stack. So Boston, I don't know if they'll be chalky. It looks like they might garner some ownership, but I think it's probably justified.
Yeah, 177 ISO against lefties last year. He can certainly be had. Like I said before, not exactly the best park for pitchers. So also I'll say the thing with the Crochet is like if he was projected to be like really chalky, I would be a lot more interested in some Ranger stacks for leverage. I think they're still live to like fuck him up. Like they could definitely get to him.
Yeah. You're just not really
definitely
getting
lean
the leverage because he's probably not going to be super popular.
Yeah, not to say you can't do that, but I just think when you just look at everything we're looking at here, I think Crochet it's like big time Crochet over the Rangers, in my opinion. I agree with you. I like the Red Sox. I don't have anything extra to add other than Eovaldi can give up power to that side of the plate. They have a lot of good lefties to throw at him, starting with Duran, Devers, and Tristan Casas. So he's also a pretty good real life pitcher, and he's only 7.2K, and they do have strikeouts in the lineup. So I think this is one of the like play both sides kind of thing. Like I'm not like so confident that the Rangers or the Red Sox are going to come in just light them on fire here, but I do think like I more lean Boston than Eovaldi, but I think you can play both sides.
There's just a lot of pitching on the slate, and I think like Eovaldi's cheap, but so is Hunter Green, so is a 6 Sonny Gray. Logan Webb is cheap. Like there's just a lot to get to before Eovaldi. So like large field tournament, yeah, but certainly not on the short list.
Yeah, if you're, I don't really play single entry in MLB, but if you are going to just do one lineup, Eovaldi he's not going to make the cut for me. You say Kikuchi, I say White Sox, because Kikuchi does look really good, no doubt about it. In theory, he is a smash play. 6.9K, facing the worst offense in baseball, and he's got the third best projection of the slate. So is this a just don't get too cute thing and play Kikuchi even though he can be had? Because let's just be honest here, The White Sox do not have any fucking power to be afraid of. And Kikuchi does have a good strikeout rate. He did not give up a lot of power last year, and he did not walk anybody. So, like, honestly, it just seems like we should play Kikuchi. Talk me out of that.
Okay. He's cheap. I get it. The White Sox are a team we're going to pick on all year, but we've seen Kikuchi be pretty volatile over the years. The strikeouts are good generally, but he is another fly ball lefty that will give up home runs. It is a pretty good hitter's park there in Chicago. So yeah, like picking on the White Sox is fun. I just think Kikuchi, if he's mega chalk, which it looks like he will be, is a pretty bad play. Given the ownership he's likely to attract, I see him around like 30%, which just seems a little high for a slate with a ton of aces on it. Kikuchi is good, and I think like if you're playing cash games or something like that, you should play him as your SP2. And even on FanDuel, I think he's like 8-4. You can play him there too in formats like that. I'm just much more inclined to target this kind of pitcher. Like Skeens, Kikuchi will be the chalky build on DK. I'm not going to force the Marlins in against Skeens, I don't think. I would much rather attack Kikuchi, the more vulnerable pitcher of the two. The White Sox, while trash, are cheap. So if you want to spend down for the White Sox, you can pay up for something like Skeens Crochet, along with a Phillies or a Boston or one of the higher end stacks and feel okay about it. You're getting leverage on, a third of the field playing Kikuchi at least. It could be higher than that, even in single entry and stuff like that. So in a vacuum, he's fine. But the way baseball is, the way it's volatile, the way to get direct leverage against a large chunk of the field is by playing the opposite. So I'm not saying you should stack the White Sox, but I will be stacking the White Sox plenty on Thursday.
Yeah, man, the logic checks out. I don't mind it. We did it a lot last year, and sometimes it worked out. Kikuchi, like you said, he is a volatile pitcher. He's a good, talented pitcher, but he's also a guy who can get his tits lit, man. He just can get blown up at times. It's just true. I don't really think the White Sox are going to be the one to do it tomorrow. But I do agree with the logic of fading a mega chalk 6.9 guy. Here's the thing. You don't have to play White Sox to gain leverage away from Kikuchi and hope he doesn't like fucking nuke the slate.
Yeah, you can just not play him.
You just don't play him. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I agree. He's definitely a good play in the sense that he's cheap. He projects very well. He gets strikeouts, and he's facing the White Sox. So all of that checks out. But he's kind of a bad play based off of the ownership alone, right? So like, there are other guys, we'll talk about them, but really the thing is you don't have to stack White Sox. I think it's an appealing thing to do because then you get instant leverage. It's double. You get a fucking stack that hits, and then you're going against the guy that a ton of people are playing. But I think my preferred strategy is going to be just to be underweight on him and then go and get somebody kind of in that similar price range. You already mentioned Gore as a possibility. All right,
White Sox are still my like 11th most exposed stack, so it's not like a team that making a core.
Right, you're not going like 80% on White Sox.
Like it's the most obvious leverage play on the slate.
I feel like
therefore they are not one of the worst stacks on the slate just by default.
Right.
And they do have some like Luis Robert, Miguel Vargas, Andrew Vaughn. They have Michael A. Taylor now. They have Austin Slater. They do have guys with track records of being decent enough hitters. Benintendi also there, as far as I know. So it is a trash lineup, but you can talk yourself into like a mini stack, and you can still eat chalk elsewhere if you want. But it's not the worst thing on this slate.
Yeah, that is good context to offer too, because we will say that sometimes like a GPP stack does not mean go play the White Sox in every lineup. It does not mean fade Kikuchi in every lineup. It just means there's reason to believe that, this might be a good way to go a little bit. On the other side, we do have the Halos facing Sean Burke. The return of Mike Trout is really fun and exciting. It'd be nice if he could stay healthy. He looks great by the numbers here. I just don't really have a lot of interest in the Angels. I think Burke is a former reliever that is being – no, I'm thinking of Clay Holmes. What's Burke's stats? I know he was not good in the minors, and then I think he had like a crazy strikeout rate at the end of last year. Do you know a lot about him?
He profiles as like a 3 to 4 starter in the major leagues. So like, of course, the White Sox are starting him on opening day. He had a pretty high walk rate in the minors. I do think the Angels are a great stack on this slate. They have a pretty decent run total. They do have Mike Trout back, so the lineup is a bit better than it was for most of last season. Still, again, not a good lineup, but Burke is just one of the weaker pitchers on the slate, and there aren't a lot of weak pitchers on the slate. I don't think the Angels are going. I was going to say I don't think they'll attract a ton of ownership, but it looks like they are going to be somewhat chalky, which gives me some pause. Like if the Angels are chalk, then that's certainly a case to fade them. But overall, it's certainly a good spot. They do have Trout back. They have Jorge Soler now. We know Taylor Ward. We know Joe Adell have power. Yohan Moncada, I don't know what he is at this stage of his career, but previously he was a decent hitter. The most attractive option is certainly Logan O'Hoppe, a legitimately good hitting catcher who's 2,900 on DK. Like that's something I'm fine eating as chalk, even as a one-off if you're not stacking the Angels. So if they're chalky, I'm less into it, but it is a good spot in a good park against a pretty weak right-hander.
Yeah, I mean, they do have power. That is for sure. The rest we'll have to see if it checks out. But yeah, as is always the case, almost always, if a stack is profiling as like mega chalk, we just tend to ignore it and go do something else. If it hits, we'll just hope our stacks hit as well. And if it doesn't hit, we're already ahead of the curve. But yeah, I don't mind them. I just don't think they're a priority for me right now because of the ownership. So Clay Holmes looks really good here. He's 6K, cheapest pitcher on the slate. The only problem is facing the fucking Astros. They tend to be pretty good. So based off the price, I think you could consider Clay Holmes. I don't really want to play him against the Astros. Not super excited to play Houston either. But I just think it's just that is going to be a bit of a fade for me. I'm not honestly that excited to go on the other side of this game either. Are you feeling like you want to disagree, sir?
I'm getting a little bit of Framber Valdez, 8,300. Great ground ball pitcher. He'll spike a big strikeout game on occasion, but certainly not a good matchup. The Mets are a stacked lineup. They have Juan Soto now. It's quite frightening looking at the plate IQ numbers for them. There's a lot of bright green there. So not an easy spot at all, but Framber unowned tournament play. I'm okay with it.
Well, this Acuna is kind of boosting the numbers a little bit, I'd say.
Yeah, tiny sample there. For,
so Ronald, definitely anytime you check that kind of thing out, I played IQ
there is a lot of bright green at the top in much larger samples, so it's scary.
No, 100%. 100%.
So, Framber's okay. Not really getting to Houston, not really getting to Holmes on this slate. Houston, even without Kyle Tucker, who's gone, and Alex Bregman, who are gone, is still a low strikeout lineup. Isaac Paredes does not strike out. Christian Walker will a little bit, but obviously a great hitter overall. So Houston's toward the bottom for me. The Mets, more of a middle-of-the-road stack. Like, I don't really want to pick on Valdez, but I do think you can just because the Mets, like we talked about with Texas, it's one of those lineups you're probably going to be stacking every day and feel decent enough about it, just given the sheer talent in the lineup. So like Soto, lefty, no issue with that whatsoever. Lindor from the right side has good power. Pete Alonso. You go down the list, it's a very impressive lineup. So I do think the Mets are okay. Not a great park. As a one-off, I think Cam Smith for Houston at 2,400, pretty good power hitting rookie, is a decent enough play. And then obviously Yordan Alvarez on the high end, if you want a one-off there, is always viable.
Yeah, I think this is just a situation where like the Mets in particular here are just a good offense that you can play if you want to, but they just don't really stand out as like a must play. It looks like both of these will kind of fly under the radar though. Houston is not as scary as they once were. Obviously they lost Kyle Tucker. They still have a couple good bats there. I think I would mostly just do Yordan here and probably ignore them though.
The issue with the Mets is like Framber is an elite ground ball pitcher, and the Mets have a lot of ground ball hitters. Like Soto, while a great hitter, hits the ball on the ground. Vientos does. Starling Marte does. Luis Torrens does. So they don't profile great, but given the volatile nature of baseball, anyone can go off on any day. Right. So I think they're viable by default.
Yep. All right, moving on. The Giants get a nice park upgrade heading to Cincinnati, taking on the Reds. Logan Webb, he gets a park downgrade. He has to face Cincinnati. They do have a little bit of power. I don't know. I think this is an okay spot for Webb, but it's just not a spot where I feel excited to play him. Anytime you get a park downgrade against a capable lineup, their lineup doesn't look very good, though, actually. They have Ellie De La Cruz. That's That's about it. Not super into Logan Webb, even so, though, because the park. Hunter Green, though, on the other side, he looks really good. He's a very good strikeout rate. He's facing a Giants team that does get a big park upgrade, but they are not really the most formidable lineup. So I think Green at 7.2 looks really good here. I don't mind also stacking the Giants as leverage if Green picks up steam, and also just because anytime you have a team that operates in a pitcher-friendly park, they can just explode when they get into a more hitter-friendly environment.
Yeah, it's just kind of the one I'm going to be playing both sides of. I think Green's a fan play for the strikeout stuff. He really reined in the home runs this year. That was a problem for him earlier in his career, but last year I think he only allowed like 12 in 26 games or something like that, which is a pretty steep decline in that regard. It is a good park for hitting, though, which will keep the Giants in play. I think as a leverage stack, they are a good one. They do have power in the lineup. They have Willie Adames now. That's a big boost for them. Matt Chapman was good last year. So there is a lot to like on both sides. I'll be playing a lot of Hunter Green, and I'll be playing a lot of Giants as well.
Yep, agreed. Thing is, though, Hunter Green, not that owned right now. We know he has quite a good ceiling. I'm pretty sure he did really well against them last year, too. Not that that's super relevant. Let's see here. What was it? Yeah, 37 fantasy points the only time he faced the Giants. Not too bad, sir. But he looks like a really good pivot away from Kikuchi. It's like he's only $500 more. So I think that is like one of the first guys.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how the ownership is like.
Yeah,
he should be chalky on this slate, but I think Kikuchi is going to get the lion's share of that ownership, and I would just much rather play Green for a few hundred more.
Yep, 100%, right there with you. I don't know. I think the ownership could stick. I don't know. Maybe it'll even out. Kikuchi will come down a little bit, but it seems like that's where everybody's going. All right, next game is Cleveland in Kansas City. Tanner Bybee taking on the Royals. I think, but Bybee's really cheap, isn't he? 7K taking on the Royals. 16 fantasy points per game across 4 meetings with the Royals last year. I'm not that excited to play him. I think he's okay, but they Royals are just a tough offense to peg, man. The Royals can definitely get it going, and they do not strike out a lot. So I don't think I'm going to do anything here. I think if I did do something, it would be stacking the Royals, but I don't feel drawn to them.
Yeah, I like Cole Reagans quite a bit. He's just underpriced. 8,600, good strikeout pitcher. The Guardians, over the last few years have not been a very high strikeout lineup, but they do have quite a few in them. Quite a few strikeouts in them now, between Austin Hedges and Bo Naylor, both projected to be in there. We'll see if that actually happens. Gabriel Arias will strike out on you, Brian Rocchio as well. So once you get toward the bottom, there are some whiffy hitters. And Reagans is just underpriced for who he is, like a pretty good, legitimate borderline ace. So I do like him a lot. Not really into Bybee, like you said. Kansas City is a better offense, very low strikeout. And the game has pretty good hitting weather, I believe. So not great. Cleveland as a stack against Reagans may be okay if Reagans picks up some ownership. Jose Ramirez is actually my highest owned bat on the entire slate. So while I'm not stacking Cleveland a ton, I am getting a lot of him by himself or in a mini stack, along with like Lane Thomas, John Kenzie Noel, guys like that. Kansas City, pretty good stack too. They're expensive, but guys like Bobby Witt, super high ceiling. Sal Perez at a weak, generally weak, maybe not as weak this year as it's been previously, but catcher's usually pretty thin. So Kansas City against Bybee, I don't mind. Not a core stack by any means on this slate, but you can make a case for both offenses.
Yeah, 2 notes to add in there. Cole Reagans in 2 meetings with the Guardians, 9 fantasy points per game. Yuck. Also, KC not really a home run park in general, but it's like top 10 in park factor overall, though. So if the wind is also blowing out or the weather's really good, maybe that could factor into that. But I don't disagree with anything you said. I think the Guardians lineup isn't very exciting. So I'm definitely leaning Cole Reagans big time. He's way too cheap for how good he can be.
They do have a pretty good run of power hitters against lefties at the top. So I think, like I said, like Thomas, Noel, Ramirez, something like that's a pretty good mini stack.
Sure. All right, Paul Skeens, first Pirates opening day. Don't really expect him to falter here. He's getting the Marlins, who are not good. They have no power, and they strike out a shit ton. He, on the other hand, doesn't give up power, does not walk anybody, and he strikes everybody out a shit ton. I just don't think we need to overcomplicate it. Skeens is the best pitcher on the board. He is too cheap at 10K. He's got the best projection. He's going to be mega chalk, and that is chalk I will gladly be eating.
Yeah, I am not going to really punch holes in anything. The Marlins are even worse than they were last year, it looks like.
And possibly
which is
so.
kind of hard to believe.
Yeah.
Not a huge strikeout offense overall, but, top pitcher on the board pretty clearly. Not going to really mess around stacking against him. I do think that Sandy Alcantara is an awesome, awesome play on this slate on the other side of the game at 7,700. Not historically a huge strikeout guy, but he is a good pitcher overall, good ground ball stuff. He's just underpriced, and he's facing the Pirates in a really good pitcher's park down in Miami. So I'm not seeing Alcantara projecting for a lot of ownership, but the Pirates aren't an imposing offense. They are pretty average for strikeouts, but in terms of upside for the dollar, I think Alcantara is one of the better point per dollar plays on the slate, and he's not really getting owned appropriately.
I think people are forgetting how talented he is because he missed a lot of time with Tommy John surgery. But okay, I'm a little bit worried about him possibly being limited. He's projected for a 77 pitch count. He did get up to like 80, 90 in spring training, and he played well in spring training. So maybe it's not that big of a deal. The other interesting thing, by the way, he's got the second worst projection of the slate, and he's 7.7K. So like in that range of like Hunter Green, nobody's going to be on him whatsoever. But I 100% agree. I think he's a really overlooked play. He's just not going to catch ownership. The Pirates offense is not very scary. They do not have a lot of power, and they do strike out a little bit. So the only concern at all for me, it would be potential limitation in his first game back, right? That'd be the only thing I'd be concerned about. But unowned, in a good spot, good pitcher-friendly park, there's really nothing bad to say.
Yeah, the bat has him at like 92, so I'm just assuming he's fairly full tomorrow.
All righty. All right, so Chris Sale takes on the Padres in San Diego. So obviously another pitcher-friendly park. Not a lot of strikeouts in the Padres lineup, and they are capable. Not really afraid of them, but I think it's not really the best spot for Chris Sale if you're going to pay for him 9.3K. I'd rather go get Crochet. I'd rather go up to Skeens. I would even rather pivot to Zach Wheeler. I don't want to shit on Chris Sale. I think he's obviously got great strikeout upside, and he can dominate any matchup, and it is a good park, but it's just not the slate for me to go get Chris Sale.
I want to like him. Like, he was probably the best or one of the best pitchers in the league last year after being injured constantly for like the last 5 years. So him bouncing back the way he did at his age was pretty shocking. I see no reason to believe he can't continue to be that effective, but I'm kind of just getting a dusting of him. I think it's just a slate context thing. Like Crochet and Skeens at the high end look better. I mentioned Hunter Green and Alcantara among the cheaper options. I prefer Reagan's even a discount on DK. So Sale's certainly fine. Like the Padres, while they don't strike out a ton, it's also not a super powerful offense once you get past like Tatis, Machado, Jackson, Merrill. So it's okay. Like if he's going to be low owned, I don't have an issue with it, but not someone I'm really making a priority. I'm not really making anything in this game a priority. Like the Atlanta side looks okay, but Acuna is still out. It's not an amazing spot for them by any means. Park downgrade. Michael King is a pretty good pitcher, but I'd prefer him to be cheaper than 8K. Like if he was in the 7K range, I'd have a lot of interest as a Kikuchi pivot, but 8K against Atlanta, not really something I'm dying to do tomorrow.
Yeah, it's just kind of like the Mets thing that we're talking about, or Rangers or whatever. So like just a good player that is fine, but just not, relative to the slate, not really a priority. So that's the way I view Sale. I'm definitely not playing King against a very talented Braves lineup. Even without Acuna, they have a lot of power. So it's just not there's no reason to do that. Like you don't have to play him. There's better plays. I think Sale is still interesting just based off of ownership alone. Like if you don't really want to do Crochet at like 20%, pivot to him. If you don't really want to do Wheeler, you can pivot to Sale. Like he's in play if you're in that price range and you just want to get a little bit different. That would be the upside there. Same with the Braves. Like if nobody's going to play Braves just because they're facing Michael King in a pitcher-friendly park, like a Braves stack to close out the night sounds fine. Like That never is bad. It's just the Braves don't scream like you must stack us today. That's just that's the reason. All right, so to wrap things up, we got Pablo Lopez facing the Cardinals. Cardinals lost Paul Goldschmidt, addition by subtraction, possibly. I don't know. But they don't really look that imposing. The only thing that is they just don't really strike out that much. This is a pitcher-friendly park in St. Louis, so Pablo Lopez is fine. Yeah, he's fine. I just don't love the strikeout matchup for him. On the other side, Sonny Gray with flu-like symptoms gonna be out there for opening day. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. In theory, Sonny Gray would be a really good play here. He's got one of the best projections of the slate. He's only 7.8K, and the Twins definitely can strike out. But I don't really want to play a dude who was throwing up or not fully there, or doesn't have all his energy or something. Kind of a big deal when you're throwing a fucking ball trying to make people miss a bat. So at 7.8K against the Twins lineup that can strike out in a pitcher-friendly park, you can play Sonny Gray. I just probably will not. If a lot of people do end up playing Sonny Gray because of the price point, I think the Twins are a little bit interesting, actually. 214 ISO against lefties, and boy, oh boy, do they have a lot of lefty power over there.
Yeah, I would like Gray normally, but the projection I don't think is taking into account the illness and whatever other injury he's dealing with. So, it's a good price and the matchup's okay, but I just prefer Alcantara in that Pittsburgh-Miami game. It could be like 1-0, hopefully. So no real need to do it. I do think Minnesota is a good stack against him. Their lineup's not laden with household names, but guys like Wallner and Larnick and Correa, Buxton all have legitimate power. Even Ryan Jeffers as catcher looks pretty good. Gray's not someone I'm also dying to pick on usually, but if he is under the weather or not healthy or both, it's perfectly fine. They're relatively cheap. St. Louis side, not really getting to a ton. Picking on Pablo Lopez, not a great lineup, not a great matchup. Pretty good pitcher on the other side. But they don't strike out a ton, so Lopez himself is more of a secondary play. This is kind of another game that I'm not really very excited about.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, that is going to do it for the game-by-game breakdown. Let's wrap it up real quick with your number one pitcher of the slate and your favorite stack.
Well, number one pitcher is obviously Skeens, but that's not breaking news. I think the main thing to take away from this is that I will be severely under the field on Kikuchi, not in that I'm not stacking the White Sox against him in every lineup in which I don't have him, but just getting away from him, I think, is a good way to get leverage with other guys in that range. We talked about Hunter Green. Alcantara is about $1,000 more. I just think there are a lot of ways to do that. Fading the sketchy chalk of Kikuchi. Favorite stack on the board, I think, is probably the Phillies, just given their power, given Gore's home run issues. It is a pretty good park for home runs in Washington as well. So that's my favorite stack on the board, and fading Kikuchi is my favorite strategy on the slate.
Yeah, I'm with you on Kikuchi. Hunter Green is my favorite pivot there. If that ownership holds, that's sick. Paul Skeens is the main play there, but if we're going to drop down a little bit, Wheeler and Crochet would be the two guys I like the most. Don't have a problem with Sale, just like those guys a little bit better. As far as offenses go, we talked about some of the guys we already like, but I really like the Twins against the possibly sick Sonny Gray. Don't really love the park, and Sonny Gray is a good pitcher, but I think that's a really interesting element, a little bit of a wrinkle people will overlook to some degree. And then the Braves unowned to cap off the night. I think they're an interesting contrarian play just because they're the fucking Braves. I don't think anybody's gonna be on them. I think they're a little bit interesting. That said, we're gonna hammer in our top plays and our stacks that we like. And you can access that over on Patreon. Actually, by the way, you can do it for free at first. 7-day free trial to test out our plays and our stacks and see how you do. If you just want free advice, you can keep catching us here on the DFS Build. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next video we do. And then also come join us in Discord so you can catch some more free advice and talk shop with like-minded individuals like yourself. All right, thanks for watching and good luck.